Welcome to the Milk Market Tidbit for the December Dairy Products Report that USDA released yesterday. This is Dr. Lawrence Jones with Farm Institute, and I'm recording this on February the 6th of 2025. So as usual, our Dairy Products Report is our third report for the month. It comes out usually at the beginning of the next month, but this kind of summarizes everything for December. And here's the overall numbers that occurred. I know there are a lot of numbers on here, but we're going to kind of go through these just as it relates to the Dairy Products Report. First thing we always look at is were there any revisions? And USDA did revise up both cheese production and butter production for November. The next column is December 2023. I put into my typical, which doesn't matter now, and the actual. So for the Dairy Products Report, we were looking for cheese production, and this came in very similar to the increase in milk production. So milk production was up 0.9% month over month, and cheese came up 0.6%. And basically, 64% of the milk went into cheese, so cheese is kind of following milk production. Butter was actually up quite a bit, and that somewhat makes sense given the fact that the fat test has come up significantly. And we just continue to have a lot of cream around to make butter. So where I want to start is with my rolling disappearance, because to me this is the one that gives me the really big picture. So right now the blue line is trending down, which would suggest that disappearance is declining, and that would be my opinion. Now the disappearance for the average of the last year was 39,183,000 a day. In December we produce a little bit less than that, so we still are producing less cheese than we're actually disappearing, and that makes complete sense because we've now taken the stocks-to-use ratio down to 34 and a half. We were clear up to 38, so we've significantly reduced that by 4 days of excess cheese. This would also suggest that we need 9.39 million cows, and we're about 9.35, so we're a little short, about 40,000 short on cow numbers, if these other things for demand, cheese to milk ratio and milk per cow all hold. So let's try to figure out where this cheese all went. So the first that we're going to look at is exports, and we did have a global dairy trade on Tuesday. That was up 3.7%, and I first plotted this out. So man, we've had 4 sessions where we've had session over session increases in the change, not necessarily increase, but increases in the change. But then you kind of stop back and say, well, we had 4 sessions where that all went down. So all we've really done is recover from where we were about 8 sessions ago. But overall, prices were up, and if we look at our prices, butter is a $3.21 on the world market, $2.41 on the spot, so we should be exporting that. Cheddar is at $2.28. We're about $1.86 on the spot market, so that's close. That's about 42 cents, and usually I figure closer to 50 cents to move it, but that definitely has possibility to export. Non-fat dry milk is too tight. There's only a 3-cent difference here. Overall, this global dairy trade would have suggested that our prices should come up about 86 cents. So what did we do in terms of prices? So the green is the global dairy trade at 228. The blue is the last National Dairy Sales Report, and this is January here at $1.89. And that suggests that we should be exporting cheese. There's a big of enough difference there even for January to be exporting in the spot market at 185. And so here are the December exports. We exported 8.1% of the cheese that we made in December. Last month it was 7.7. So we're up a little bit in exports. And butter is at 3.2 and always hangs in there around 3 plus or minus a little bit. So if we look at daily cheese production, we've just been in this tremendous upward trend. And then 3 years ago, we really flattened this out. And so to me, this is describing a little bit of a paradigm change in the way that the industry operates. There's kind of a couple different explanations of what it could actually be, but definitely cheese production has been flat for the last 3 years. And if we look at the cheese to milk ratio, we've been increasing over time. And in fact, I would argue we're still on this long-term trend, so not a major issue. But we've been taking more of the milk and putting it into cheese, and that continues to be the case. Then we look at the ratio of different cheeses, and what's clear is that Italian is always the biggest, but boy, did it jump up. So we made more Italian on a percentage basis than we typically would. American is still below that trend line, and cheddar came down and is below its trend line, and the other cheeses actually came down as a percentage also. So everything kind of lost in terms of percentages except for Italian that increased. If we look at American cheese production, again, the same sort of thing. We've been on a significant upward trend, and we've been actually on a downward trend for the last 3 years. Same thing with cheddar cheese. We were on a significant upward trend, and now we've turned down. It's very similar to American cheese, and of course, cheddar is the major proportion of American cheese. Whey's been on a downturn for the last 3 years, and last month I kind of asked the question of what's driving this, and the most obvious answer is we're making less cheese, therefore we're going to make less whey, and that's pretty well the case. So I built this new ratio, which is the pounds of whey to pounds of cheese, and that's been on a downward trend, and that would probably suggest that we're doing a better job of making cheese and we don't have as much whey left over, but more or less we're still on this long-term downtrend. We can look at the percent of the fat that goes into butter, and again, this changed 3 years ago, and so we've had a significant uptrend. We were kind of trending down for quite a while. And what's interesting, if you kind of lay that on top of the fact that our fat percentages have just gone crazy the last 3 years, so there's a lot more fat around, and then you look at butter production, exactly the same thing. It's a 3-year trend. So basically the scenario is we've got higher fat in the milk, and so we've got more cream around, and we've got to make more butter. Another piece that leads to this is looking at the ratio of butter to non-fat dry milk ratio, because if it's coming out of skim plants, you're going to have, this long-term trend of just about a 1-to-1 ratio, and then all of a sudden this is taken off, which suggests that this butter is being made without making non-fat dry milk. And what we can see here recently, just looking at dollars, is that the value of butter was about even to non-fat dry milk in August of 22. It really became the king out here in October of 23, but it is now down to being a stepchild again. We've basically got enough cream around that we're going to drive these butter prices down. Some are thinking that it could go as low as $2.20 butter. It just finished the spot market at $2.40 today. Some of the other products, ice cream is trending down a little bit, but nothing significant that should be low this time of year, and it just does down a little bit. Yogurt production has been declining and then kind of took off here in the last 3 years to start coming up, but it was down from we thought it would be seasonally, so it could be a little bit of a supply chain issue because yogurt has a longer shelf life than a lot of these things. And the one we just always got to keep an eye on is this cottage cheese, because 3 years ago it just took off. It was a little bit lower than we thought it would be given the seasonal adjusted numbers, but again, it is just kind of headed to the moon here. So that's a synopsis of what happened. I'm probably going to discuss it a bit more detail on my Sunday podcast of what it actually means. Again, if you want to subscribe to that, just send me an email and I'll tell you how you can subscribe to that. It's $200 a year, which is a pretty good deal. It's only $4 a week. So this week we had the global dairy trade, as I said. We had the national dairy sales report and the dairy products, so I will get you a milk market tidbit on the class and component numbers. Today we'll have the dairy slaughter, and tomorrow we'll have the spot milk. So as I say, the next milk market tidbit will be either this afternoon or tomorrow on the class and component numbers.